Hey, hour number 8. Here we are.
So let me just say a couple of words, Dave. I'll pass it right back to you.
Yeah, good.
Because this is a continuation, right? This is an hour where we get to kind of in the middle of things begin to say, okay, so what's emerging? What's living in us? What are some of the things that we are anticipating, like you are, Dave? Some things that we would like to see, that we feel are being called for, and are calling us into our interbeing right now. And so, Dave, I think that's perfect that that you're thinking a little bit about or sharing a little bit about what Marty Spiegelman, who sent a message saying she's so excited by what we're doing and it can't be with us this time, but she has been in the past
Ben
for
algo dur.
our work. What, Marina? What? No? Okay. And so, um, and so before I pass it back to you, Dave, just want to set the tone here that this session is, we were just talking about music in the previous session, and the rests between the notes are as important. Some some musicians have said that they're more important than the notes, but the rests in between are what allows it to arise in us. If there were no rests in music, spaces between the notes, we would simply have a cacophony and it would be one blast, right? So this ability to pause now, to reflect, to share, and this is really, you can think of it as open mic, but not in the sense of stand-up comedy. That's not that kind of open mic. It's the open mic where it's, let's see, what would be the juxtaposition to stand-up comedy would be sit down and embracing. I mean, this is what we're doing here now. What is embracing you? What are you being embraced by in this connectathon so far? Because we're really still only at the beginning, hour 8 of 24 hours. So, yeah, what is arising in you? What is it you want to share? And eventually, Alexander is going to stop talking so that you can actually start sharing some things about these things. I'm not going to say when I'll stop talking. I'm sure you have things to share, but I'm right now holding forth. And, you're like, when is he going to? Okay, I'm sorry. All right. So, and water, I love that also, the idea that we were talking about in the previous. Thank you, Kim, for putting that in there, because this is the flow space. This is also where we are right now. And there's the stillness, as Rupin asked us to remember that in water, there's often stillness, right? Depending on which waters you're in. And then it can be all kind of flow in water. So let's sit with each other now. And if there's time of silence, that will be also perfectly fine. And if Marina is leaving, are you leaving, Marina? Oh yeah, it's going. She's putting her message over there that she's leaving. Big hugs to you. Okay.
Come back in an hour.
All right. Do you have any last words before you go, Marina?
Until tomorrow, and this connectathon is, as always, is absolutely fantastic and specific in its incredible connectedness and warmth of relationships. And yeah, have a great time together. And I will return my morning with the stories about the calendars.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
It's late already, quite late in Oxford, so understandable. And Artie, what the heck time is it for you?
3:30 in the morning.
3:30 in the morning. I was going to say you're an early riser, but you've been with us. So, yeah, oh my goodness. So yes, okay. Awesome. All right. Well, so Dave, you were onto something. Why don't we go back to you and then we'll see where this takes us. This is, now it's 55 minutes of listening, using our keynote listening capacities and being with each other. Dave.
Yeah. First, welcome, Gordon. So good to see that you've joined us from Hawaii. And I'm really looking forward to our session in an hour's time. So, I was talking about water because at the end of the last session, we were talking about the disconnection between community and water, and what water means, and the corporatization of water. And we recently had a really major problem here in our capital city, where an international corporation was in charge of our sewage, and they just dumped it into our harbour, and really caused real harm. Going back to a story I told once in one of our other sessions.
I started here. It's me.
Sorry?
Yeah, stop. Put it down.
Somebody just popping in. Was when I was approached by Marty Spiegelman via Mike Parker in the UK, and she was looking for a project, and when we talked about it, we decided it could probably be about water. And I kind of intuitively felt that I needed to go and talk to this young Māori girl that was living 5 hours away from me. I was in Wellington. She was in a place called Whanganui, on our biggest water system, the Whanganui River, or the second biggest. And I went up, we sat on the step, and we talked about, in Māori tradition, the importance of water and the flow of water, and how water connects from the mountain, from the maunga, through the river systems, and the entities that live in the water, and how that water reaches out into the Pacific Ocean, the largest expanse on the world, and how other river systems flow into this place. And it just seemed like a really good metaphor for bringing people and communities together. This young woman's partner was a glass blower. And so we had this idea that I didn't think it was my project. I thought it was her project to carry, because of her cultural background, which was part Māori and part Aboriginal. And for Aboriginal people as well, water is such a critical thing because of the way Australia is. You know, it's such a rare thing. Anyway, because her partner was a glass blower, she thought she could reach out to people from around the world on some of the big river systems, the Ganges, the Mississippi, and get vials of water to come to Aotearoa, New Zealand, that we would put into the headwaters, and get the whole community involved in taking this water from all around the world, putting it into the headwaters of this river system, and letting it flow through these communities and out into the ocean that would connect us all together. So it was a great sort of metaphor. And but she didn't know whether these vials of water would actually get through customs and whatnot and travel, or anybody would respond. As I left her house, I got into my car, I put on the national radio, and the mayor of that city was on the radio talking about how a power company wanted to dam the headwaters of that river system, and the impact of that dam would have on all of the life in that river. And he was trying to fight against the corporate powers. Our power company's been sold to international corporations. And I thought, wow, that's timing. And what happened was that in doing this project, this water started showing up. She started reaching out to the community, to school children. They started writing stories about the river and what the river means to them. The whole community got together, and they had this ceremony, and they put the water into the river, and it flowed through, and they learnt about the mythologies and whatnot. And that moved on to the recognition that the river is a living thing. And that went through a legal system where we recognized the rights of the river as a living thing, just as a corporation has rights, so-called rights as a living thing. It's too important to fail. So that was the first example of a personification of an awa, of the river system, that went on to the personification of the forest as a living system, and the personification of Mount Taranaki, which is where I live underneath, as a volcano and its own unique ecology. So this is, the whole thing was a lesson on how to bring community together, but how to use British law to actually fight for the rights of something recognized in it from an Indigenous perspective. And that translated into a modus operandi for other Indigenous people to do the same sort of thing around the world, because it set a legal precedent. So that was just my thoughts on how do we get people involved, and how do we put the power and agency back into community, and how do we get children involved as well, which is so important. That's why we do it, for our children.
That's very powerful. That's very powerful. Thank you for sharing. And also the stories, the real world stories, you know, their experiences, and these things that can galvanize people, that can get them to feel that they are part of this flow. I mean, and water is such a good metaphor for that. Artie, did you want to, or because Kim was putting some things there, she's, I'm just seeing if you wanted to pick up on that.
So thank you. Thanks for that, Alexander and Dave. Absolutely. In fact, what Kim was referring to is a dialogue that we hold mainly with water leaders in India, but sometimes we invite other people from other geographies as well. And water leadership in India is extremely rooted in grassroots work and indigenous practices. So there's a lot of learning that comes out of it, and then India is also a country of engineers. Right? So we've got a very interesting mix of indigenous practices with modern engineering in terms of curating water resources, and also looking at conservation practices at a more rural and district level. So you basically start looking at water in the context of a bioregion, and what are those characteristics of a bioregion, and what kind of practices should ideally be curated and implemented at scale within those regions. So it's not just how we view or understand water, but it's literally setting the pipelines, ensuring that they're clean, ensuring that there's security around those. So I'll share something very interesting with you. At one point of time, I was big on the idea of sustainability. And then I thought to myself, I said, this is such a goddamn non-directional word. It doesn't help me check my action. I do not understand what sustainability is. So, with all the work that I've been doing at the UN in terms of creating advocacy for various policies, I've actually been promoting the idea of sustainability be replaced with nature reverence, because this is a term that would help you check your action. I mean, sustainability is such an ambiguous idea. And interestingly, the lady who wrote the term sustainability while these guys were sitting in the, in that air-conditioned room trying to write the SDGs, she said, I just thought of a word and I didn't know that the whole world is going to go crazy about it. And this was Jessie Lydia Henshaw. I think some of you would know her. Right? So when you look at what we latch on to and how we continue and how we allow all those things to shape our immediate, a little distant and far out culture, both in terms of time and space, it's astounding that we've survived for such a long time. It's literally astounding that we haven't gone extinct as yet. It's kind of a loss of innocence, loss of faith, and all of those things that happen when you start reflecting on these things, and you say, it's just so simple. We've already been doing this for like generations, and what happened? Where did we sort of drop the ball? So these dialogues have been about reviving that sentiment, that wisdom around water, and also the kind of engineering, the kind of knowledge systems we need around natural resources. So because it's an open hour, I think I'm just going to be a little, and we're just about 10 people, so I can continue for a little longer. So I also work, I actually work at the intersection of mental health, education, industry, advocacy, and some other crazy things. So as far as the industry piece is concerned, I do a lot of sort of keynotes at the level of construction industry bodies, even energy systems. So green hydrogen, biomass to green hydrogen is something that I've been working on for quite some time. Even though it's not a mainstream technology, but it's emerging because we've got a lot of biomass happening in the world. And we are at a critical time where energy security, unfortunately, has become greater than climate goals, right? So in fact, hour 12 today is when I talk about, what is the future of energy system? So when I look at the idea of biomass to hydrogen, it's just so simple. We just need like a skid-mounted, system to do that. But the supply chains around biomass are so poor, so highly politicized. So we developed a model called INFUSE, which stands for Infrastructure, Food Security, Energy Systems, Waste, Water, Well-being and Security of Society. So that is the entire range of work that we do. And we keep energy transition right at the center of all things. And to that effect, I just very simply asked a question at the UN once, that which is that one human system that is highly productive, extremely collaborative, you can't dismantle it, you rely on it parallelly. And everybody gave me some crazy responses, but the answer is transnational organized crime. So action item 24 in the Pact for the Future is about looking at transnational organized crime and financial flows and cybersecurity. And that is mainly because you want transition, you can't have transition when everything on the ground at grassroots is controlled by the mafia. So you talk about water, mafia. You talk about garbage, mafia. You talk about land, sand, human value, everything is controlled by mafia. So when you look at transnational organized crime as a system of how people converge, it's purely and purely based on the vulnerability of the front line. And then it goes back into deeper layers. So it is these entities, they literally create systems of vulnerability and then tap into the vulnerable as like ready fodder. So it's like, it becomes like a give and take system. It's like a snake eating its own head, right? So, I mean, I cannot any longer look at one system in isolation. I have to look at it in the context of its codependencies, interdependencies, and the past, present, and the potential future. So I hope that sort of paints a picture.
Thank you, Artie. These are the calls to, I don't know what to call it. I don't want to say call to reality, the wake-up calls, because we have to take into account the framing of organized crime and also the VEOs, the violent extremist organizations, which have very similar exploitation of vulnerabilities. So the international organized crime, again, is not the same, but has lots of characteristics of the violent extremist organizations. Usually the second has much more based on improvised and really difficult to imitate guerrilla engagements, right? So that's difficult to predict. Lots of governments are working on looking at patterns, particularly in international organized crime, and now they have all kinds of algorithms that help with that. But the violent extremist organizations often work in such ways that you can't see the patterns. So these are things to grapple with as we engage with. A lot of what we've been talking about thus far in our Connect-a-thon is love. And, it gives the sense of us being able to stand and hold hands on the beach at sunrise and sing Kumbaya, and everything will be fine. But, of course, it's not enough to be engaged with purely good intention. We have to see the patterns and have to engage with them in all of their emergence. Artie, you wanted to say more about this, I can tell.
Yeah, thanks, Alexander, for reading into that. In fact, if you remember right in the beginning when Marina was talking about Living Cities Earth, had asked this question that how do you engage with the leadership at a political bureaucratic level? Because these are people, I mean, there's a line that's there, and when you really have to engage with them and work with them, you've got to start flirting with the line, as much as you don't want to. But our institutions, our systems of engagement are such that the best of us have to go rub shoulders with the devil, right? So where is the recourse from that? It's not coming in as yet. So in fact, right from the first Connectathon, I've been asking this question that, these are beautiful things. I'd love to sit in my garden and smoke my own cigarette and, listen to songs and read my book. But how do we take this love to the most debauched in the world? Is they're literally the problem children, right? I mean, if you look at the leadership of the world, and by the way, okay, we are recording. That's all right. I think I've said that on record many times. So during COP29, that's exactly what I had said, and I had the UN cops chase me around town, which was that you look at any leader of the world sitting with his finger on the button to destroy the world. It's a product of poor nurturing and unresolved childhood traumas, and that's substantiated by the fact that domestic violence is one of the primary causes of international conflicts. So when you look at that, for a fact that you've got to go down to ground zero and look at the bigger picture, break it down, bring it to them, and then make them walk. But for you to do that trapeze first, that's a lot of brain, heart, soul work, right? So, which is why I ended up creating the system called Be Well, which is literally about engaging with individual young people and what we do. So the argument we presented was that to understand a child, there are only two ways. One is the academic report card, and more traditional societies, it's the horoscope. Where's the third narrative to understand our children? Hell no, there is none. There are no systems of that kind of engagement. So Be Well is built on collection of that empirical evidence around 60 plus parameters, so that the first time the parent, the teacher, and the child herself, they are looking at themselves through a narrative rather than numerics. So I take a lot of pride in saying that the reports that we give out during Be Well are completely non-numerical. They are narratives, right? So, I mean, I'm literally trying to work at both ends because I can see the spectrum, unfortunately. It's like, when the veil is lifted, it doesn't keep you soft enough, right? Unfortunately. So, but sometimes you try and get a shut eye and say, okay, let's ease out, let's calm down. And which is why I'm at the Connectathon for the 7th time. It's like a little happy meat grinder for my brain, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's the story. So, I mean, I'm in the energy sector as well, and I look at the kind of conversations that happen. There is no way we can touch these people. There is no way what we are talking about reaches them or changes them. Correct me if I'm wrong in your experience.
No, that's good. I don't think you're wrong, but I think and so I'm gonna bring in hopefully Vitaly, if you can share a little bit in a moment, and then we have John and Michael as well. I'd love to hear from you. Just to maybe we can sit with this for a bit. These are uncomfortable dimensions of it. It's so lovely to sit here and talk about love and to talk about how everything is all we need to do. Okay, and it's important and it's right. And so how do we deal with the dynamics that are traumatizing our children now? We're creating generations of trauma that these individuals are going to be growing up, those who make it, because some of the situations won't allow for all the children to survive. It's horrible. So, and those who do have witnessed dynamics that are nothing short of trauma. So you were talking about this, Artie, that the individuals who take leadership positions and power, when they have this kind of trauma, will perpetuate these cycles. So what do we do? How do we engage? And I think it's a very good question for our Connectathon. How do we is the answer radical love? The word love is really being used a lot here, particularly by me. But the point is, radical love is really an interesting approach as well, and it is a strategy. What does it mean? Radical love. And to embody and be in that with others, even those who are, I love the little image, probably I'll look for it, but it's Pogo who, and you remember Pogo, the comics from a long time ago, and they said, we have met the enemy and they are us. That's interesting. So what do we need to have to face in ourselves that bring this forward, that bring forward this kind of dynamic? Because we can talk about the beauty of things and then engage in and encourage by our simple patterns of being with others, dynamics which are not life affirming or future creating or opportunity increasing for others. All right. So this is heavy, but important. Thank you, Artie, for opening this consideration, because we need to do that. Did you want to say something? And then I'll go to Vitaly if he's okay with that.
Thank you for entertaining that, because I know that this can get heavy after we've spoken about such wonderful things, but that's exactly where the gap is, and it's just becoming so much wider every day. So thank you for entertaining this.
Thank you. Vitaly, tell us, you are living in the midst of this, and tell us a little bit, whatever you like, frankly. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what are you hearing now that arises for you in terms of the challenges to meet these?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it's incredible experience of maybe this is the correct word, tolerance, because I think tolerance is the key word when we can say something about our today's meeting, and because there are a lot of different meanings, different views of different problems, and every time I see how everybody just respect others' opinions, and really, when I for example when I was listening to Arturo about his experience in Mexico, I was thinking about the connections with people, the relationships with people, like relationship between father and his children, and it was really incredible, because so much humanity in this, and it's really just I like this situation, because I work at school with children, and every day we have our classes, online classes. Because of the war, we have not opportunity to go to school. It's some problems because we have some bombardment, we have sirens, we have drones, and we working through online. But nevertheless, I try to do my best to support children, and we have everyday communication. And I was listening to Arturo, and I was just thinking about my relationships with children, and I think I find out a lot of similar relationship, and this, and that's why I thought about this relationship like like a big family, because you are responsible for this small people, and you want to support them. You want to make them strong. You said, Alexander, that children in our time can have some trauma because of this event. We have really, in Ukraine here, we just had this situation, and we try to do our best just to support them, to I don't know how to say, just to not to feel them that there is no future and something like that. No, at all. We just want to support them. They just want to inspire them that their future will be the best, and because I think this is our responsibility for about them. What I wanted to say, and what else I wanted to add. A really incredible meeting today, and this is my first meeting and first experience in a such community, and really very, very, such event is not just like there is a conference and that's all. Not. I think I will be just thinking about this event maybe 1 week in the future, maybe 2 weeks, or maybe a month. Because there were a lot of thoughts, a lot of insights about our world from different parts of our planet, and it's incredible experience for me. And thank you for all. Thank you for Kim to invite me to this conference. Thank you to be with you.
Thank you, Vitaly. And I just want to add one thing onto this that also relates to what Artie was sharing in the nature reverence. So Vitaly and I are in a Saturday. It's called the Drop-In Conversation Club. I can never get the whole name right, but it's kind of turned into like dialogue. It used to be people were going to learn English, get better English skills. Almost everyone's in Ukraine or is displaced, but it's become just really a place of connection. And there's a topic, and kind of what was said in the earlier round about dialogue. Just these different things. They're just naturally coming. The slowing down, the listening, and the sharing of personal stories that you're not expecting. So we have a friend, Liliana, who's there. A lot of teachers are there for some reason. And she one day just shared that every day is a practice, something calming. Every day, no matter what the weather, she goes into the river. She goes into the river to get immersed by the river, and then to go to school and bring the river with her for the children. So, and then in the dialogue space, it's like, a place of, allowing for insights to come through, right? And it can be based on love, but it allows to be present elsewhere, outside. So there's something about the nature reverence. There's something about, you have no idea. We just don't know when someone shifts, I feel like inside. When someone's going to go up to one of the energy people who's bringing the river with her. Because, it is true. We are the river. We are the water. And I know we know that because I've heard you mention this, Artie. So, and Natalia too, who leads started water dialogues up. She's also in the Great Lakes Basin and up in the good part in Canada. Yeah, so just bringing that reality here too, and that is also love, also here. Just we don't have to sit around and talk about it, but we're living it. You're living it. Everyone here is living it. That's it. I'm putting this back.
Thank you, Kim. And Alexander, I'm not sure exactly what the organizing question is we started out with, but I've got a visitor that's trying to get in the conversation here, and she's changing my screen picture. Anyway, let me just say something about Vitaly's work, and he shared this with us in the past and other groups. He's in another dialogue group with us, but the challenge of teaching in a high school, teenagers in a war-torn country, it's hard enough in a affluent environment. I'm in a very affluent environment, Santa Barbara, California. The thought of and what he has said also is how to give them courage in these times, in these days. I think about that, Vitaly, what that challenge is. And to this notion of how we deal with this issue of trauma in the younger generation, and particularly when we're also experiencing trauma. How do we manage that? I've had the benefit of being an older father, older dad. I been married for a long time, finally got married, took a long time to have a child. I finally had a child at age 60. And that child is now 21, almost 22. And what I found was there was a bit of a gift in the sense that I wasn't struggling, trying to hold on 2 jobs at the time, but could actually be entirely present with that kid while I was still doing some work. We just came off of a presencing collective, or what was it, Kim? Collective presencing. And presencing with the younger generation is the greatest gift I think we can give them at this point. I was raised in a generation where the parents kind of direct what your future is as long as possible. That's not true with this generation, Gen Z, which we may have some grandchildren. But is how they navigate going forward, bringing their own imagination, creativity, and still having a parent who believes and sees them, who they are, as opposed to seeing what we want them to be. I think there's a dramatic difference. I found it a dramatic difference between my own experience, where I didn't feel seen as a young person, who I was, versus how I'm experiencing my life with my own son, who's not following a path that I had in mind, but the ability to be in that presence and celebrate every atom in who he is a gift that I see showing up in him. How that's translated across generations, I mean, I think it's just a question of what we as ancestors to be, how we live as a demonstration of our own values, but also how we are absolutely in the presence of this younger generation. And we just came off another piece on intergenerational, and Vitaly, you were talking about that, the importance of intergenerational connection and presence. It's entirely possible. I know it to be true. Anyway, what was the question?
if I could just throw out an aloha from Hawaii, Gordon Fuller here. And I just wanted to shout out to the young people of the future in the Ukraine there and say, young people, you are the citizens of the future. And the truth of things, as you see the world around you despoiled, damaged, and in need of incredible repair, the fact is, this world that all of us are living in is very much the same way. It's failed. It's unsustainable. It cannot go on the way it is. Fact is, the whole world needs to make a quick, vast change. And you guys are the forefront of that. You'll be living in that world. And what we have to do is be good ancestors to you and help you have the tools that we have today from our indigenous wisdom and our wonderful science and artistry. We, as creative, flexible, and adaptable creatures, which is what we humans are, it's how we've hung on this long with all that we've been challenged by throughout all of the epochs of human civilization. This epoch we find ourselves in now will also pass, but what comes after it is up to you, and that's your turn. And so now, even amongst the desolation that we find and feel, we need to find a vision, a better way, and to make that real. And that's your job, and that's what we're here to help you do. So thank you for being there and studying, and even in the challenge, but dream while you're at it. Be sure to dream all the time. Think of the world ahead. Make it so. Lean into the future. It'll bring you the tools, the talent, and the people to get the job done. And that's the future that you're going to inhabit. So I'm with you on that. Aloha.
Thank you, Gordon. Michael, I'd like to turn to you, but in just one moment, maybe I could ask Gordon before you leave. You're not leaving, I know, but you just turned, I want to get you back. Gordon, if you can perhaps kind of give us a little bit of a teaser of the next hour. Tell us a little bit how this, if you're going to be doing red threading, let's say, you're going to be weaving this, what we've been doing, what we're talking about here, what we have been talking about, if you've seen or heard any of the previous sessions, how is this then leading into what you want to be exploring in the next session? Not without starting your next session, give us a little bit of a teaser so we can know a little bit about it.
Well, I have spent the last 30 years having an idea that I thought was pretty good, and it was related to what now is called the cyber-physical continuum. The idea that the digital world, which has become so much a challenge for us at this time, didn't actually take into consideration the physical world. And it's quite separate in that very great sense. It's also taken a lot of our humanity with it. 65% of people in the world have no connection to nature whatsoever. That's a frightful thing to think of, because after all, we're part of nature. And the world that we live in has become so challenged and divisive that most of the institutions and systems we have kind of gotten locked up. Over the course of time that I've been alive, I've progressively lost my eyesight and became blind. And in response to the challenge of blindness, I began thinking of the tools and technologies that we would have in the future and what they would do for us in the way of helping make the world more accessible for everyone and thereby more inclusive. So mapping, spatial mapping, is an area that I saw as an emerging field back in the 90s, and began working with this idea of turning our communities into our own community-owned, member-supported community map, in which wherever you go, whatever you do, you have a private, secure, connected way of engaging with the world around you, the physical world, engaging with stories, engaging with museum photographs of the place before. Any of your special interests would be served by your engagement. So that's an ambient AI and spatial computing. And it's focused on the built environment as well as the natural environment, because getting people back into contact with nature is important, even if it's letting people know when the creek is rising, or the dam might break. Or I'm saying that from Hawaii, we're getting terrible floods right now. Those are real conditions. And how do you find that information? Well, you got to go scratching around and remember where you kept a real radio, because we've had power outages and the internet's been out. And then you begin to try to find any other resource that can connect you to the world around you. And you realize this system isn't built for that. It's a one-to-many model, people up in the clouds beaming us information. So the future belongs to us on the ground where we live, from the grassroots to the grass tops, building another world of layer on society, which gives us our neighborhoods, but does it in a way that's private, secure, distributed, without a central authority, a central gatekeeper, a pernicious and surveillance kind of based infrastructure. We don't need that. We need our own communities where we can be responsible for our community as a bulletin board, as a educational environment, as a place of joyful tourism, a place where you can learn about the flowers and trees and plants, a place where you get the history of what was there before, the ideas of what might be there tomorrow, and the community can engage in building a new vision of the world they want to live in. And so for me, that's the idea that I've been moving on and would love to share in the way of why wayfinding is important to me. Also, my partner, Kay Aloha, she is also my sighted guide. I'm a blind person. So when I'm in the built environment, I have virtually no information about the world around me that isn't in some brought to my attention by virtue of the working senses of hearing or touch or navigating in that environment. But the world we live in today offers many new tools that could help me, most certainly, but more important, it could help society so that people can find the resources they need, the help from their neighbors, the compassion, the understanding, the engagement with the issues that are affecting their community, which is where we can do the most good, when we're moved to help and engage where you live. And so it's ancient wisdom, really. Indigenous societies survived thousands of years in city-state-like organizations that were able to find balance in trade and commerce and art and sharing and caring. And that's the world that we need to kind of bring back. And it's quite a different world than the extractive, exploited world and engaged with at this point. But they've made their moves. We've seen what they're about. And now it's time for the people to knit together a new social fabric around which we organize communities to help communities and get to know each other and learn from each other and share. And I think that's possible. I've been an advocate for all my life for the idea of community media and television and sharing and caring for each other in good ways. And so we hope this will make a difference. Yeah.
Gordon, thank you so much. So now you heard it here first. This is our prep then for the hour that's coming up after this. So that's wonderful. That's a nice primer. Thank you, Gordon. And this is what we get to look forward to continue to explore these ideas with Gordon and Dave and others in the following hour. But Natalia, you have raised your hand. And Michael, is it okay if Natalia goes first? And then we'll turn to you.
I really love the generative turn towards positive futures, and so much of what's been said is resonating from the questions that RT posed about how do we acknowledge our capacity or incapacity to change the hearts of those that have been hurt and the impact that they're being done, to ways that Vitaly is working with young people now in Ukraine to hold the seed of peace and to hold their futures and to actively work towards their futures and preserve culture. And there's something so sacred about that, of holding life in that time. And to what Gordon was just saying, it makes me think of Don Tapscott's work about Web 3.0 and the use of blockchain in building digital sovereignty where people own their data. moving to futures where maybe there's some form of reciprocity where people are not receiving just UBI, but there are royalties for all the information and data that people are putting out into the world being cycled back to them. But not just that, like going further in terms of our relationship to the environment, where we're currently not valuing ecosystems, wetlands, forests, especially in urban areas where they get cut down for transit projects. And with the monitoring technology that we have, we can look at urban tree cover and the impact that it has in reducing urban heating and the benefit that that has for the health and the people in the communities that are nearby those trees, and what that does not just for the asthma, but also reducing heat stroke. Technologies can help us have more of a solar punk kind of future. But then it's not just these new technical technologies, it's also the ancient technologies of how we dialogue and gather. And Kim, thank you for keep nodding in the direction of some of the dialogues that we've held. Like, one that's really dear to me is this idea of watershed circles that I've held with urban Indigenous communities here in Toronto. And the idea being that we're all part of a watershed, and everywhere that the raindrops fall and pool and collect in that watershed, they connect us in our diversity in that bioregion that we're in. And so by coming together in a circle, that collective wisdom about what's happening in the watershed grows. And it's a way of building relationships to neighbors tied to something that's physical in a world where we're increasingly going into these multi-different meta silos. I don't know. Everything is just so, but it's nice to be with you all right now. And a lot of this is going to ripple forward for a while for me.
Ripple forward. Beautiful. Thank you, Natalia. And well, look, we're now, this pause of 1 hour is just not enough, but it's wonderful, the conversation. So I'm going to, as I pass this to Michael, and we still have perhaps Summit to share, I'm going to also drop into the chat here a link to it's a 700-word blog post. It's short, but I think it relates to what we're just talking about, connecting us to also the eco-civilization event that happened just recently. And it's about sourcing hope where there is none. How are we going to be the systems we want to see when things are falling apart? So that's a little bit of reflections on that. But right now we turn to Michael.
Thank you. I love what Gordon was saying, or the spirit in which Gordon was speaking. It was exactly what I was setting out to do 50 years ago. We started a company called Sustainable Transport, and in light of what Ardi was saying about, what does sustainability mean, we got so sick of people asking us 50 years ago that we changed the name of the company. But sustainable must have sustenance, and almost everything, 99-point-something% of the use of the word sustainable nowadays should be maintainable. Because we've set up a system, we say we've cut down the forest, we're going to plant a forest, we are planting the forest. That's maintainable, it's in the hand, maintenant, which means it's not sustainable. It's not of its own sustenance. Sustainable means natural, almost as simply as that. So there's two things going on in Connectathon. There's two sets of thoughts that are prevalent in the kind of way in which we're approaching the future. And they sort of left brain, right brain. They're masculine, feminine. They're, it's like, how do we solve the problem? Or how do we believe in the future, as I say, in the spirit in which Gordon was just talking about it, is there is a beautiful world ahead of us. I'm absolutely convinced, and this is why I set out to build it 50 years ago, before realizing that nobody gets it. So I've evolved into a more spiritual being, a more patient person who's waiting for and that moment has arrived. So everyone is in for an enormous shock in the next 2 years, because we're going to flip into the fifth dimension. So there's something very beautiful, and those people are talking about the love and being centered and coming from our hearts and so forth. Now, if you can imagine the 8 billion people on this planet suddenly becoming an 8 billion person cooperative, where we're all self-managing, we're self-determining and so forth. So I said a couple of hours ago, we used to be in a world where if you could see it, you could believe it. And we're moving into a world where If you can believe it, you will see it. And that's the choice. If we start saying, what I want in the world is this. There was a lot of talk about children, and what we want for them is this. The concentration on that produces that world. It's that simple. Now, I've effectively come back from the future. I know that I know what we're just heading into. So I'm here to build the fifth, which means I can't really engage in war and in crime and in, so I wrote a paper 50 years ago on the corruption in economics and government and so forth. And I've just taken the last 36 years off to wait. Now we have a generation that cannot do anything else. So in terms of the children, let's just look at what's happening there rather than what we need to give them or teach them. It's what they're going to teach us. I'm an indigo child. We began about 100 years ago, and there were very few of us who have a complete connection with the future. Then there's a group called the crystal children who came over a smaller period of time, but more of them. And these are Christ conscious. They're Christ-aligned, crystalline children. The next lot are rainbow, more of them, shorter time span. Then we had the platinum, no, we didn't. We had the central sun children. Now we've got platinum children. Every child being born on the planet at the moment is already fifth dimensional. They've already got 3 strands of DNA. They're already connected to their heart center. They cannot be any other way. So we've got this, we've reached a tidal mass now. We're at a tipping point at which there are more people on the planet who believe in cooperation, believe in compassion, and suddenly that will all be expressed. The idea that we can have a war in 3 years' time is an absolute nonsense. The idea that children will suffer in 3 years' time is an absolute nonsense. So there is an enormous transition happening. And it's into the balance, which is the right brain, left brain cohesion that we're looking for, that we're talking about in Connectathon. It's the male female becoming one. It's all those things coming into balance. And it's happening right now. So we will step into a completely harmonious world in less than 5 years. There's not a lot that we have to do about it apart from believing in it. The more that we connect and say, this is really happening, this is, it's about individuals finding their own feet on the ground, possibly growing their own vegetables, both believing in ourselves and moving into that world. So in terms of the question that you raised at the beginning, what are our reflections on Connectathon? This is my third, and I still see these 2 camps. There's one that is problem solving, looking at the nitty gritty, how do we deal with this extraordinary mess we've got ourselves in? And there's another lot that's saying it's about being centered. And that to me is the exciting challenge. It's like making that conversation into one so that we're all moving forwards with solution because we believe it and because we're living it. And it's like, it's a delight, it's a joy, and every moment is, I'm very hopeful. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Thank you. And I know we're basically at time, but thank you so much, Michael. We'll see it when we believe it. And hey, this is the idea. We believe it. I want to take one last minute here to see if Summit, if you would like to share with us just any insights or any reflections you have.
I think Alexander Summit cannot come on call, as in he can't speak, because he's I think at home, and he's got his folks around and everybody's sleeping.
Got it.
Well, so,
got it. All right. Well, he's been actively supporting and joining the chat that's in the chat box. So thank you for engaging with us in that way. Thank you. I got it, Summit. So thank you very much for being with us. And in any event, we are right at time at the top of the hour, and it's nice to be able to move ahead. I know that we're living in Kairos so much of the time, and this is where we need to be really with our hearts, but Chronos is keeping us to the clock. And so we are now going to shift into our next hour, which is continuing this conversation with Gordon and others. Kim, do you want to say anything about that as we stop this recording and move into the next?
John.